Your brand may be staying on top of current trends, but are you agile enough to stay relevant, resilient, and successful as customers, competition, and the world continues to change at a breakneck pace? I'm thrilled to share the newly revised version of my first book, The Agile Brand. I'm calling it The Agile Brand Revisited. It's been updated to reflect our continually changing world, and it provides 7 principles that form the backbone of an agile brand, offering detailed insights and actionable steps for incorporating them into your business strategy. This is the book that started it all, and I'm excited to share it with you. It's now available in print and digital formats and available everywhere. Learn more by going to the Agile Brand Guide website at www.agilebrandguide.com. Welcome to Season 4 of The Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom, where we discuss business agility through customer experience, employee experience, and digital transformation. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom. The Agile World podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. To read more about the topics discussed on this show, you can go to my website at gregkihlstrom.com and read my latest articles or get a copy of my latest book, Meaningful Measurement of the Customer Experience, now available on Amazon and other retailers. My name is Greg Kihlstrom, and I'm the host of the Agile Brand podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the evolution of product management and its importance to the customer experience. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome Nichole Mace, who has spent a career in product management at companies like LastPass, BevSpot, Quilt and Zipcar, and is now VP of Product Growth at Pendo. Nichole, welcome to the show.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to talking about this topic with you. So why don't we start by you giving a little background on yourself as well as what you're currently doing at Pendo?
Sure. I feel like I've been a product manager my whole life. One of my early influences was Intuit, and I had the luxury of working there pretty much right out of school. And at Intuit, you just learn right away that you want to do right by the customer every turn. Intuit was super focused on usability testing and really incorporating the importance of the customer throughout. So that was really defining. I also was part of Constant Contact, a little startup that went public, and that was fun because it was early SaaS business. So done a bunch of things. LastPass was my previous company, previously known as LogMeIn. The product is LastPass. And there I was in charge of product-led growth and the end user experience, which was a ton of fun. And now I have the opportunity to actually be at my favorite products company, Pendo. So I was a user of Pendo before at LastPass. I brought Pendo in, love Pendo. So this is really my dream job, combination of my favorite thing, product-led growth, and my favorite product, Pendo.
Wonderful. Well, and just really quickly, I guess, could you tell us just a little bit about what Pendo does?
Yeah, sure. So Pendo really does kind of 2 things and then combines them, which makes it super, super powerful. So Pendo has a really strong analytics tool, really geared towards those products where there's a login. And it also has a no-code solution for guides and onboarding and tours and tooltips and things like that. But it really creates a way for product managers to have a lot of power to use no-code to create really custom experiences for the end user and be really smart about it by segmenting customers so you can have different experiences for your different users.
Wonderful. Well, let's get started by talking about the role of the product manager as well as its evolution and relationship to CX or customer experience. So from your perspective, how has the role of product manager evolved over the course of your career?
Yeah, I've been around a long time, so it really has evolved. When I started, there was no chief product officer. That wasn't even a thing. So product reported either up to marketing or engineering. So right there, that is a huge change. And also, there's just been more skilled product managers that have sort of come on. There are classes now. You can get a degree in product management. Much more of a focus around customer experience, interviews, usability. Those are all tools that product managers have today that, a long time ago, people were light on and still trying to discover.
And so along the lines of evolution as well, how's the relationship between product managers and customer experience evolved?
Yeah, so really really just the massive focus, right? So what you've seen with companies that have grown with the end user experience, Slack, Calendly, others that have this sort of groundswell within companies, starting with the end user, just creates a situation where, wow, if you can create an amazing early experience for early customers, it just explodes, right? And so listening to those customers carefully, having your customer support team super close with them as a product manager, listening to them closely, those are all ways that you can really optimize your experience.
What about the business objective component of this? So, has CX become more ingrained in the role of a product manager and, sort of how they're evaluated? Or can you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, sure. I think one metric that is really shared that truly captures the user's experience is NPS. And so that really, there was just a huge rise with NPS. And now there are different sort of variations, like you're also looking at customer effort score and things like that. But ultimately, you're looking at the entirety of that user's experience. What happens when they call? What happens when they need help? What happens in the product? All of that is part of the customer journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So from a product manager perspective, what kind of knowledge or awareness should they have? And, what should they be learning beyond some of the things that might be generally assumed? I mean, we touched on CX, but, how is that role and their need to learn kind of expanded?
Yeah. I mean, it's like for product managers, you're always iterating on your product. You need to always be learning.
Yeah.
So you really need to stay on top of things. Listen to podcasts like this, read books, read articles, share as much as you can, get a group of folks that you're working with that are fired up about what you're doing, and just stay on top of it and share the latest thinking. The world is moving really fast, and you just have to really be focused and understand and follow along what's happening. But I would say from a skills standpoint, what I've found to be absolutely fascinating is this massive shift to analytics, right? So not only do you have to have analytics at your fingertips to be able to make really good decisions, everyone wants to be data-driven, but you need to take it a step further. And you need to be a little bit of a data scientist, or at least kind of one in training. You need to be able to use tools and slice and dice your segments in different ways and understand and do analysis yourself. So that has really changed. And I've definitely seen there's sort of a split in people who are willing to do that and those who are not. And you just need to do it to stay relevant.
Yeah, and that's actually a great segue to what I wanted to talk about next as well, and getting customer insights to build a better product, right? So, there's differing schools of thought on, just how much customers should lead versus a visionary leader versus companies, innovating and showing customers what they haven't thought of yet. Yeah. I know there's like a Steve Jobs quote I could insert in there or something, but, how do you find that right balance between, customers don't necessarily know everything. They know what they like when they see it, but they don't necessarily know what they haven't seen. So how do you find that right balance between getting those insights from them and really making an innovative product that the customers are going to want?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because a lot of times there's, hey, where's our innovation? We need to be
Right.
to be innovative, right? And the reality is, all innovation is truly solving a problem. Maybe it's a problem the user hasn't fully recognized, but it is solving a problem. So if you can dig deep into that problem and iterate on that and use that as how you're going to innovate, you're going to be in a really good place. Problems that customers know they have. I mean, honestly, if I had $100 to invest, I put $90 on solving all the known problems and $10 on, could be a problem, but it's cool, but not really a problem, right? So yeah, I mean, there are those 1 in a million, someone comes up with something and people had absolutely no idea that they had a need for it, but they have the need now. That is awesome, but it doesn't mean that you're not innovating if you are iterating and on solving problems that people know that they have today.
Yeah. So what do you think the primary measures of success should be for a successful product manager?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and I think it's evolved over time, right? I think as a product manager, you own creating a great end user experience. That is sits on you. You are the
Yeah.
buck stops with you. I also think, really if you have a product, a software product, you want people to come back. So you're, daily active over monthly active user, your DAO over MAU, like you should be watching that pretty closely. If users aren't engaging, it's just a metric of health. If users aren't continually engaging and you're not growing that rate, you're actually not really moving the needle. So you end up with a leaky bucket situation. So DAO over MAU I think is super important. I also think NPS, or even customer effort score, is also super important. NPS is a great metric for the holistic experience. I think the CES, the customer effort score, really ties into like really what they're doing in the product. And I think, your mark of how have you provided a great overall experience is NPS. And then like, how is that little new feature that you added doing? That's a great one for customer effort score. And then ultimately adding value. So yeah, you want to have a great experience, but you want to add value for that end user.
Yeah, yeah. So we're on the Agile Brand podcast here, so I'm going to ask my Agile question here.
Yeah.
So, what role do Agile approaches and Agile mindsets play in creating a successful product?
Yeah, I'm a super fan of Agile, and mainly because I think if you really embrace it, you can create a very creative culture, actually. It allows you to iterate, allows you to learn something, and all you have to do is have your act together for the next sprint, right? What is the team going to work on? And if you have a trust partnership with your development team, you understand their velocity, they're doing what they should be doing, you're providing requirements in a way that makes sense to them, then you have a trust and you're like, okay, this is how much they can take on and this is what I need to have done. And if it's not possible, and you know this from your velocity, then your job as the product manager is to reduce and take things out of the sprint, right? Maybe you slim down the feature, you drop down what you want out of the MVP, for example. So it's on you as the product manager, and Agile tells you what your team can do. But as I said, most importantly is the ability to truly be agile, right? To make changes. The world's changing fast. COVID happens. We have a war.
Right.
I mean, things are changing. You need to be able to move fast. And a 12-month roadmap that you're highly confident in it's not help anybody. So a one that you can see out, you might have a strategy, you might have an idea, but you can say, hey, this is where we think we're going, but I'll tell you with higher confidence, the next quarter and definitely the next sprint.
Yeah. And one follow up to that as well. So, I think more technology focused teams, I think, have been using Agile or whether it's strict Agile or some variation thereof for a while. But, how have you seen, what's been your experience in the product teams that you've been a part of, as well as the teams that fall outside of product? And how does that work when that one team may be all in on Agile and other teams are not? What's been your experience? Do you notice any trends in, are the rest of organizations starting to become more Agile as well? So sorry, that was like 5 questions in one, but yeah.
I have to say, I have not been anywhere for a really, really long time that hasn't embraced Agile.
Yeah.
Now, some teams are all over the map and their velocity is all over and they can't really tell you, what we can deliver. They're struggling there. But usually that struggle is, hey, we have a bunch of new team members, or it's a weird month. It's the month of December, that kind of thing. Yeah. But I've seen more and more agile driven development. I mean, I don't think, and I am one who's been around, but nobody wants to go back to waterfall. That is the worst thing on the planet. I think the trick is, though, when you do have something that is for sure a 3-month-long project, it's very tight. You've got every engineer working on it, and you can fall in a trap of like, hey, this, you can fall into a waterfall trap.
Yeah.
So I think the challenge is to always tell yourself and push yourself as the product manager to say, okay, what is the smallest thing that I can get out as soon as possible out to production that will add value, right? So you, I think, as the product manager, have to push yourself even when the thing you're delivering really is like a 3-month long effort.
Yeah, that's great. Well, last topic here, let's talk a little bit about the business model of products and how that affects both product management as well as the customer experience. So there's many types of business models for products, and I'm sure you've worked with quite a few in your career, but let's talk specifically about the freemium model a little bit. From your experience, what are some of the benefits as well as maybe some of the drawbacks of this approach from both a business as well as a customer perspective?
Yeah, I mean, the freemium model is really sort of the crux, the freemium and trial, I would say. You want the crux of what product-led growth is, right? You want your users to try out on their own your product and be amazed by it, have an incredible experience. So as far as a benefit, if you can get users to come in without much of a hurdle into your product and get value, begin to create habits, get them to tell others about it, the value of virality is incredible. Some percent of those freemium users, if you have a good paid product, will eventually buy. Eventually.
Yeah.
At LastPass, we had some users who were free for 5 years and eventually bought. So it is this wonderful group of users that, some of them become very active users that you can always go to. You can add new features to, you can test things out, but it's really, really critical when you think about a flywheel. And if you can provide a great end user experience, it's gold.
Great. Well, one last question then. As a product manager that's worked for a variety of products, what's a piece of advice you would have for other product managers as they navigate the months ahead?
Yeah. So one thing I will say, there's a little part of me that gets a little bit excited about, hey, there aren't going to be a lot of people buying. So now is a really good time to build. So those things that you've sort of kept putting off because you thought, well, we have to put out the next thing so that we can get more sales. If you know that sales are going to be relatively flat, this is a great time if you have to re-platform. It's a great time if you want to make a significant leap in your offering to just heads down, build, because then you can come out at the end with something new and exciting and fresh when the economy and things turn around. And gosh, it happens so fast, the ups and downs. So, you're bound to catch one of them on the way up.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Nichole, thanks so much for joining the show. For those listening, what's the best way for them to keep up with you and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I will just do a little plug for our Pendo blog. So Sure. That's pendo.io/Pendo-blog. You can also look me up on LinkedIn and, also feel free to email me directly, nichole.mace@pendo.io. Definitely love to talk agile and product anytime.
Wonderful. Well, again, I'd like to thank Nichole Mace, VP of Product Growth at Pendo, for joining the show. Thanks for listening to The Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom. Talk to you next week.
Thanks again for listening to the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom podcast, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe on your podcast channel of choice and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.theagilebrand.show. To get a copy of my latest book, Meaningful Measurement of the Customer Experience, visit my website at gregkihlstrom.com. Until next week, stay agile.